If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.
Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Faye. So it's been another hectic week for both of us, I think, hasn't it?
Always is, but we love it, don't we?
We do. So I've been busy doing 21 to Watch. The judges have been busy beavering away, but before they even started, we had to do the pre-judging, which was a separate group of 3 people because the shortlist was flipping huge. So at least that's all in someone else's hands now, which is great. And we're busy beavering away when you've just finished Trinity Bradfield Prize.
Yeah, obviously we've mentioned it a few times over previous episodes in the news section, but the final has happened. So, what a night. What did you think? You were there?
Oh, no, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was really good. Everyone presented so well. So that prep work, I think, definitely paid off. And I spent my time, I know you were very busy, but I spent my time talking to the other guests. So there was a really nice group of people there. Some I knew, some were obviously new people, quite a few from the university, so whether they'd applied and they'd come along as guests or not. And I also met Jen Richardson in person because we only ever see each other on LinkedIn. So right. I met Jen for the first time, which was really nice.
Nice, yeah. I mean, we won't go too deep into this because obviously the whole episode, we're going to meet the winners. So looking forward to that. But I did want to just thank again. I did thank the people on the night, but if they weren't there, there's a pretty long list, so bear with me. But one of the reasons the prize is so special is just the reach that it's getting across the university. And a nice little tidbit that I'm quite proud of is the applications represented 34 university departments and 24 of the colleges from the university. So that's incredible. And we can only really do that through the partners that we work with. So, a huge shout out and apologies in advance if I miss you out. My head is a little bit fried still. The Trinity College, obviously, Cambridge Enterprise, IE Cambridge, Judge Business School Entrepreneurship Centre, the King's E-Labs, Homerton Changemakers, and the Impulse Programme. And thanks to all the applicants, both past, present and future, because obviously without them, we wouldn't have much of a competition.
And I think you made a comment when you were doing the opening as well about all of those different programs. And there's a little bit of overlap, isn't there? So you see people popping up at these different programs and different awards, but that just shows how buoyant the overall ecosystem is and the different stages that they're going through on their journey as well.
Absolutely. Should we move on to the other news this week?
Why not? So there's lots of social media traction at the end of last week following the inaugural Sunday Times 100 tech listing. This guide brings Britain's fastest growing tech businesses to the forefront, and making the top 100, there were some from Cambridge. All 3 were biotech companies, so CMR Surgical, Cycle Pharmaceuticals and Metrium Biosciences. And there was actually also a one to watch category, and in there we had New Quantum, Zampler, Luminance, BitBio and Constructed Bio. So some decent coverage. Obviously, we think there are lots more that should have gone on that list, but some pretty decent coverage for a UK-wide list.
Armour back in the news. They've appointed Eric Hayes as Executive Vice President of Operations with immediate effect. He will lead operational activities across multiple products and solutions with a particular focus on AI. He joins from Fungible Inc., where he was the CEO until it was acquired by Microsoft in 2023.
And the last piece of news is from Cambridge speech technology company Speechmatics, who are collaborating with Santa Clara-based Umbrella Inc., an edge AI semiconductor, and they're bringing AI-powered natural language interactions to edge applications. Speechmatics technology is recognised for its ability to accurately understand speech in over 50 languages, regardless of accents or dialects. And with their recent launch of Flow, they've now moved into the world of voice-powered AI interactions. So this partnership has significant implications for multiple applications, including advanced robotics, autonomous driving, automotive in-cabin systems, smart cities, security, and customer service. This update also reminds me, James, that we really do need to reach out to Katie, who is the Speechmatics CEO, who comes very highly recommended from Jamie Bignell.
Yeah, we absolutely should reach out to Katie. Okay, so now on to the interview segment, which is, as I say, all about the winners of the Trinity Bradfield Prize. Just a quick recap of the structure for anyone that's not familiar. We have a first prize winner, which was Demetria. And then we have two runner-up prizes, one of which is donated by the Hellings family. And the winners of the two second prizes were PowerMatrix and Healthspan Biotics. And new this year, because we like to keep innovating, is we've added an Angel Prize, which is designed to recognise the most commercial progress over the 12 months since winning the previous prizes. So this is obviously open to previous winners of the prize. And the judges were so impressed with both the progress of BioTryp Therapeutics and from Cambridge Nucleomics that they decided to split the prize, which was fabulous because I think everyone really enjoyed the two presentations. So let's meet all of the winners. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the episode today. I'm sure you're all still very much buzzing from the final. Let's start, Lorna, with you, obviously as the first place winner. Congratulations. Would you like to introduce yourself and your startup idea?
Yeah, thanks, James. And hi, Faye. Yeah, in short, very, very pleased and unexpected to have won last night. By introduction, my name's Lorna McLean, CEO and founder of a company called Demetria. In essence, we're trying to improve the way in which a women's gynecological condition called endometriosis is diagnosed. So at the moment, it affects 1 in 10 women globally, and yet on average, it takes 9 years to get a diagnosis, and diagnosis requires a surgery. We're looking to move it from 9 years down to just 9 minutes with a simple AI-assisted ultrasound scan.
Ishu, do you want to introduce yourself and Healthspan Biotics?
Yes, hi James. Thank you very much for inviting me here. Hi Faye. So I'm Izu and I'm a CEO and founder as well of Healthspan Biotics. And here at Healthspan Biotics, our mission is to bring a safe, effective, and affordable therapy for people with Alzheimer's. And how we're trying to do that is by leveraging novel science, which led us to find this probiotic bacteria, which we think could really help brain health in Alzheimer's patients.
Fabulous. And Zufu, do you want to introduce PowerMatrix?
Hello, James. Thanks for inviting me. And yes, we are PowerMatrix, a hardware startup company to provide our customers with the most efficient, high power density, low cost, and modular power supply products and solutions. We provide reliable, efficient, and cost-effective power solutions for AI computing facilities to support the digital economy and achieve green carbon reduction.
And Ash, you're a previous winner of the Trinity Bradfield Prize, and for the first time we've introduced a new prize called the Angel Prize, which recognises the most commercial progress over the previous 12 months from winning the competition. So would you introduce yourself and BioTryp Therapeutics?
Thank you, James. I felt really nostalgic yesterday when I came back and pitched BioTryp again, because you're absolutely right. I think we pitched BioTryp last year and we were lucky to win the Hellings Prize. So we were invited this year again to pitch for the Angel Prize. Now, BioTryp, let me start with myself. I'm Ash Zarkan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BioTryp. And BioTryp is a spin-off from the Department of Genetics in Cambridge, developing novel therapies for bacterial infections. To put things into context, we are all aware of viral infections now because we've seen COVID, but bacterial infections are equally important. Currently, they are responsible of 1 in 8 deaths globally, and the numbers are just getting worse and worse. Now, when you look at people with bacterial infections, you will notice in most cases, those infections don't happen with individual bacteria, they happen with communities. They stick to each other, they protect each other. Those communities are called biofilms. What we are developing are therapies that essentially stop those bugs talking to each other. They stay apart, so you inhibit those biofilms, then the immune system can take over, and antibiotics will be able to clear the infection much easier. So it's an anti-biofilm oral therapy. It's something that doesn't yet exist in clinic. We hope to be the first company that takes something like that to the clinic.
That's great. Thanks, everyone, for giving those quick introductions. So before we get into some individual questions for you, I just wanted to ask, what was the experience like yesterday? And I have to say, everyone presented really well. What I found quite different was when Ash, yourself and Henrik came in, you were very different as well. You were very confident, very relaxed. You know, it was almost like, hey, I've done this so many times now. So that was really refreshing to see. But for the newcomers this year, what was that process like and how did it feel getting up there presenting?
Yeah, I don't mind taking this first. Yeah, I think when you see the alumni come back and the way they present with humour, you realise that actually the judges are not, very foreign people that you can't engage with and have a laugh with too. Actually, we're all here to try and just move the Cambridge ecosystem along in the best way possible. So I almost wish the Angel Prize had been pitched before us, so we had that sort of light-hearted take to it. I think definitely hats off to James for organising. My God, just the level and attention we got in the run-up preparing was really, really useful. Max as well, my goodness, if you ever want very critical, granular feedback on a pitch deck, Max is your man. So I found that particularly useful because I would definitely admit that my pitch deck is far from perfect, and at some point we'll need probably a graphic designer involved because I don't think I can rectify all of the issues involved. But yeah, overall, a really beautiful, welcoming atmosphere and a lot of really useful new connections, as well as reconnecting with old off the back of the Impulse programme and things. It's nice to see a few familiar faces in the crowd.
And Ash, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, it was a different experience because I remember myself last year, and frankly speaking, my pitch was nowhere near the pitch that I've done yesterday. It doesn't actually compare. And luckily, the event was not recorded, so you can't actually watch the two pitches and compare. But in reality, what happens is, I think last year I was just like the guys who were presenting yesterday for the first time. I was pitching that technology for the first time. I had some practice, but not that much practice. But when you come back to present a year later, after you have raised funds, you spoke to tons of investors, you spoke to different stakeholders in the field, obviously things will improve. So I think it just comes naturally with time. And at least in my case, that's exactly what happened. I look at how our pitch evolved over the past year, and I believe it's going to happen for all the other founders. So I really look forward to the ones that will be coming next year pitching for the Angel Prize, because then when you look at them, compare with this year, you will notice a massive difference.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredibly inspiring to look at, to see Ash and Hendrik pitching again, and all of this amazing progress over the last year. I mean, it's 1 year, so it's really, really, really inspiring, and I aspire to achieve, even half of the success that they had. That will be really amazing for us. So I'm really grateful to have this inspiration. And again, also, I mean, just as Lorna mentioned, all of us are really, really grateful to yourself, James and Max, for this incredible level of mentorship. I think both of us were still changing our slides an hour before the presentation. I was certainly changing my slides maybe 15 minutes even before the presentation because of the issues. And I mean, we're incredibly grateful for that. And, it's just a great thing that you guys are doing for this ecosystem that you're essentially building as well. So thanks.
So let's start talking about the individual pitches. Lorna, you went first, and you had some quite startling numbers as you introduced what you were doing. And so do you want to talk to us a little bit more about the 9 years to 9 minutes?
Yeah, so in short, this company came about because I have my own personal battle with endometriosis. I mean, the average time it takes globally is 9 years to get from first presenting to a GP to getting a diagnosis. But for me, it took even longer than that. It was over 15 years. And in that time, I had 61 GP visits. Essentially, every time I was having the first day of my period, I was having vomiting diarrhea for 24 hours and passing out from pain. Quite often, during that first day, and going to a girls' school, I knew what a normal period would look like versus someone who had what I was navigating. So yeah, 61 GP visits, 50 ultrasound scans over those years, and 3 A&E trips, about 180 days of missed school and work, and ended up with quite a large out-of-pocket bill for the surgery itself, because actually, unless you have disease found from an ultrasound scan, the NHS won't offer you the surgery. My private medical insurance through my work wouldn't offer it to me again because there was no evidence of disease found on an ultrasound scan, despite having every symptom on a tick list. And so, yeah, I was left with, let's say, quite a large out-of-pocket bill. And as a management consultant at the time, working on global healthcare transformation projects for my day job and dabbling in politics in my spare time, I thought, my God, if me, someone who theoretically is paid to know how to navigate a healthcare system, cannot navigate it myself, my goodness, how on earth would someone with no access to funding, no ability to advocate for themselves, be able to get through this? And so I went on to join forces with a brilliant woman called Carla Cressy to first help her get a charity going called the Endometriosis Foundation. And through that, I actually realised that there was a business here in the diagnostic part. So yeah, really kind of a bizarre way in, but that's sort of how it came about.
So Zufu, can you tell us a little bit more about PowerMatrix? On the podcast, actually, recently, we've had a lot of conversations about the impact of AI, the need for more data centers, the impact to the environment of those data centers. So your technology could be very revolutionary in terms of improving the efficiency of data centers. Can you explain a little bit more for us?
So AI technology has been deeply integrated into our daily life. The AI computing heavily relies on the data centers. For example, for the large language model, it requires a lot of GPU chips for training their data. And the GPU chips are installed in the data centers like the supercomputing data center. And more supercomputing data centers have been constructed around the world. So this is a hardware facilities for the AI computing. So power supplies performing the electricity converting from the power grid to provide the power for the GPU chip. So power supply is very important in this energy conversion chain. So we have a revolutionary vertical power delivery system that can be compared with the conventional solutions. That in the conventional solutions, the power supplies are placed around the GPU, so it occupies large areas. Our vertical power delivery system to place the power supply on the back side of the GPU underneath the GPU to reduce the areas of the power supply, so it can greatly shrink the size of the GPU and also can improve the efficiency compared with conventional solutions. We can help to save about 10 billion for the data center industry every year, and the cost CO2 emissions about 100 million tons every year. So I think it's a very promising technology that can be applied in the next generation data centers. Thanks.
Sufu, whilst you're still talking, one of the things, I mean, you're talking about those energy savings and cost savings, but you're actually doing this again a very different way. And one thing that I didn't understand totally yesterday, because you only had 5 minutes, was this nanocrystalline powder, not using magnetics. Can you explain that a little bit more to me, please?
Yes, this is based on our research projects in our research group. The Professor Teng Long is expert in the magnetic materials for the applications. So nanocrystals, for the conventional power supply, they tend to use the material called ferrite material. This material has a low flux density, so it can limit the volume reduction of the power supply. For example, for the adapters for our phone or the laptop, some products are very large, some products are very small. This is because of the magnetics design, which is the biggest component in the power supply. By using the nanocrystalline material, it has higher flux density compared with the conventional used ferrite material, so we can improve the switching frequency to shrink the size of the magnetic component, so makes the power supply much smaller.
Yeah, I mean, you demonstrated that as well with the visuals that you had on the slides and obviously the demo you had in your hands.
Ash, can we come to you now? I think one of the things that I really enjoyed in your presentation was the narrative that you've built around this huge issue around antibiotic resistance. And your presentation contained some quite disturbing data, stats, which I'd encourage you to share actually to the audience now. Can you talk us just through the size of this problem and I guess the market opportunity that creates for BioTryp?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to start with one of those stats. Obviously, we were yesterday at the Trinity Bradfield ceremony, and the Master of Trinity College, Dame Sally Davis, has been championing the issue of antimicrobial resistance for the past 10 to 15 years. And originally, I remember when there was a Jim O'Neill report on behalf of the British government, they predicted by 2050 to have 10 million deaths per year, essentially, associated with resistant bacteria. But if you were reading The Guardian just earlier this month, you would have seen a quote from Dame Sally Davis, who was actually correcting that. And she was saying it's not really 10 million. We are now looking at 40 million deaths per year. Now, to put that into context, now globally, 1 in 8 deaths are due to bacterial infections. If nothing is going to be done about it, in 2050, it's going to be 1 in 3 deaths. That is massive. And according to Dame Sally, that actually will make the COVID pandemic look minor. Now, we are dealing with one of the issues associated with it, which is the ability of those bugs to get in communities. So we are stopping them getting into those communities, keeping them apart to be able to clear them with antibiotics, essentially providing an add-on. But what's important, I think what I was asked to do yesterday is to give an update, a progress update of what we have done since we won the Healthspan Prize last year. And for us, we experienced a snowball effect, essentially, because last year when we came to pitch, there wasn't an active company. The IP was still at the university. We didn't really have any money. We didn't have a bank account. It was essentially a group of Cambridge researchers and students. But after we've won the Healthspan Prize, it was essentially like a rocket that you have just launched. So we went on to progress in 4 multiple areas. First, we licensed the IP from the university. We confirmed the freedom to operate. Second, we actually joined multiple commercialization programs. We completed the Founders at the University of Cambridge program. We joined Santander X and recently won their Global Challenge, Innovation in Healthcare. We were one of 3 companies globally to actually win that challenge. We joined Innovate UK Business Growth Program as well, and we have now regular mentoring with them. But most importantly, we raised money. We raised a 300K pre-seed. We raised 100K from grants. And also we progressed the science from TRL 4 to TRL 5. And I would like now to use this opportunity to do what I've done yesterday, announcing that we have just opened our seed round, which is a 2 million seed round. And I did say that yesterday, if there are investors listening to this podcast and they are interested in doing something that has a global impact, they should come to us now. Thank you.
There's how to do it, right? Use these opportunities to tell people what you need. I love it.
Exactly. I think, to be honest, yesterday it gave us the perfect platform. And yesterday was the first time we announced the seed round. And we decided that, okay, we have been invited to pitch again. This is a perfect platform to start. So we will go on from now to actually announce it more publicly. And funny enough, just after pitching yesterday, I got 3 investors who emailed me back on LinkedIn. So it's obviously working.
You're welcome. We will definitely go around the room and ask everyone what their ask is before the end of the conversation. But I wanted to move on to entrepreneurship is hard, right? It's really, really hard being a founder, and you really need that passion to get you through those hard times. So Ziyu, do you want to talk about kind of what's your inspiration behind focusing on Alzheimer's? Why was that the field you wanted to go into?
Yeah, thanks. So basically, the main question for my career is that I've always wanted to look at diseases in general. And then we have numbers referring to the pandemic, and I just wanted to mention that every year people dying with death related to dementia, a single year, right, is as many as the whole COVID pandemic and even more. So every year there's a dementia pandemic, and this affects obviously family. But this is not a unique story, and it's very shared across many people. So many people in our team actually has this personal connection with dementia, which is why we are so committed to trying to solve this issue. So I did a PhD about it. But then there's a different question at the end of your PhD. So you've looked into this interesting science, and on the other hand, I've also spoken to all of these patients, and you talk to them, and month by month, you see them deteriorate, kind of literally. And that's something that changes someone a bit. And it makes you think about ways to affordably and quickly, as well as effectively, offer a solution for them. So this is the reason that I'm doing all of this. And it's been a very difficult road. Many unexpected things happened. In the last year was really the time where we did all of this evolution work at the Milner, which we're extremely grateful to Sir Tony as well as Alexandra for allowing us to do our work there. Just recently, we've got our probiotic strain, and then we hope to do some good things in the next year and to actually test that in patients. So on that note, if anyone's interested to help us solving dementia for 42% of the world's population, we obviously invite any advice and collaboration and support. We'll be extremely grateful for that. Yeah, thank you.
No, you're putting your asks in already. I love it. Okay. Zufu, so, I mean, obviously there's huge amounts of science and engineering skill in your startup and your products. The environmental impacts could be really significant. Maybe you could share your passion, where your background and your passion has come from to focus in this field, and maybe share some of those cost savings that your product can deliver.
The idea of our innovations is actually collaboration projects between our research group with GPU company. And because they met a lot of issues of the power supply design on the next generation GPUs, they look at the research groups, the top tier research groups around the world, and ask them if you can do this, improve the efficiency like from 90% to 95%, because a higher efficiency means the less loss. The higher loss can cause heat issues because this kind of loss should be dissipated from GPU, and they need a heat sink to dissipate this heat. So higher efficiency means you can use smaller heat sink to reduce the cost of the heat sink system. So they have met these issues and ask us if you can help them to improve the efficiency. So we have a 2-year project, and after that we have innovations on just mentioned the VPD technology and help to them to reduce the cost, improve the efficiency, and yes, they are quite satisfied with our design. So after that we have realized that there is a big market behind it, because every GPU customer needs this kind of power supply to help them reduce cost, improve efficiency.
How much cost saving can you deliver? I think you had a pretty large number in the billions on your slide in terms of the amount of saved energy that you could deliver.
For the cost, for a standard GPU power supply for NVIDIA is about $200 per GPU. So we can help them save cost about 20% because we have less component compared with their technology.
So coming back to you, Lorna, again, you've already explained your own lived experience. So what I wanted to pick up on was a little bit more about your AI-enabled ultrasound scan, what it is, and also can you share with the audience how you got the data to actually build the AI model?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you actually generated an audible gasp from the audience when you shared the story of just how quickly and the sheer volume of scans that you could acquire. So please share that story again.
Yeah. So essentially, anyone working typically in AI medical imaging, the most obvious examples of what AI could do to improve medical imaging came out of mammogram work, which actually is a relatively simple, let's say, sort of AI piece. It's almost like a pattern matching exercise that you train images that have lesions or abnormalities, and then you bring in a lot of images that don't, and it's almost spot the difference. So I think we started with the assumption of probably endometriosis is a little bit more complex an AI problem than the simple sort of mammogram work. If it was as simple as the mammogram stuff, I would have hoped someone would have tackled it by now. So we started by thinking, okay, well, let's build a lesion identification software and see what percentage we can get to in terms of diagnostic ability. But our assumption was very much that that would only go so far. It certainly wouldn't get to 90-95% diagnostic rate, which is the typical gold standard if you'd like to sell eventually into the NHS. And so I think we're starting to realise that we're not going to quite get to that gold standard with the sort of lesion identification itself. So the second piece, we're just trying to figure out what that would look like in practice, but essentially it would be a scan guidance AI-assisted tool. We're hoping very much that it will become hardware agnostic, so we'll have complete control of how that's deployed rather than having to rely on major partnerships with the likes of Siemens and GE and things. But really, why the scan guidance system is needed is I sat down for several months with some of the leading endometriosis radiologists here in the UK. And when you sit down and you just watch how they do a scan versus how a standard non-expert endometriosis radiologist is doing them, what you start to realize is even the way in which they conduct a scan is very, very different. They spend a lot more time, let's say, inside a woman. Whilst doing the scan, they're manipulating the body from the outside to make sure they've got the full anatomy covered and they've not missed areas. And so we realized very quickly there's only so much you can do if you're building a lesion identification algorithm if the radiologist using it is not looking at the full anatomy in the first place. And so actually, if you have a scan guidance to guide someone doing the scan on, you've missed this whole area and you need to go back and do it again until you've got the full 3D anatomy, then you're not going to get to gold standard. So that's the bit that is my headache at the moment, is how on earth that would be built in a way that would actually be feasible to sell into something like the NHS.
And Lorna, just staying with you on that, and then we can go around the table as well. You've got so many things to do as such early stage companies. How do you go about doing the contracts, and building those relationships?
Yeah, so I think it's been really tough. I think particularly for me, more so than most, in that I'm a patient and innovator, so I'm very atypical compared to most people building in medtech. most people are either an academic spinning out their research or they're a clinician themselves that's really spotted some sort of need. So I almost had to come from both sides and try and bridge both gaps. And to do that when you're in your early 20s, where you don't have a lot of financial savings to fund something, was even more difficult. I think I was really lucky that I did study at Cambridge a couple of years back. I studied history of all things, but I think what I was really lucky during that time was a lot of my college friends were actually commercializing life science research. So when I sort of spotted this gap in the market and didn't know whether it was an idea worth pursuing, I just got back in touch with a lot of those old college friends, some of which I'd not spoken to for several years, and just said, look, this is what I'm looking to do. Should I be getting back in touch with the university? If so, how on earth do you navigate an organisation like Cambridge University? And is there any help within the tech ecosystem to try and see even if this is worth running with, or actually whether I should leave this idea very much as an idea and not execute? And 14 of those all said, just get on impulse. Whatever you do, we don't care how you do it, just get on impulse, because it suddenly opens up the Cambridge ecosystem, both on the tech side and the life science side, and will, really help you figure out the next steps. So yeah, I was very lucky. I had, let's say, a very late application, far past the official deadline, but UPAR and Lynn were very kind to let me on. And it gave me almost everything I have now. The decision to leave a full-time job to run at this, actually a co-founding team, numerous mentors, many of which came to support me last night, which was really nice. And yeah, even intros to you, Faye, that helped with the PR and everything. So really grateful. But yeah, it was really tough in the early days.
And I want to go back to you, Izu, if I may. You put together quite an impressive group of advisors that are really helping you on your journey. And one of those is Simon Galbraith. And I just wondered if you could tell us about how that group got together.
Yeah, I think in terms of advisory group, we have two advisors. One of them is Simon. So I used to lead this charity called the International Sleep Charity. I co-founded that many, many years ago when I was still an undergrad. Actually, during my undergrad, I created something called the Sleep Imperial. But anyways, so I've been always very passionate and interested about sleep and its connection, obviously, with Alzheimer's. And then through basically an introduction from Charlie, our co-founder at the Sleep Charity, he introduced me to his friend, Simon Galbraith. And the reason for that was that actually, Simon is very interested in the microbiome field. And he also knows a lot about dementia. And at that point in my career, I didn't really know what to do. So it was more like a career talk. And Simon basically told me, you have good data, but are they useful? Not really. You should make use of them. So that's the founding of Healthspan Biotics. So it's basically Simon said, you should do something. So I'm following his guidance very closely. And we meet basically almost every week for an hour or two. He's really one of the most amazing persons I've ever met.
Awesome. Ash, it's been a while since we've spoken to you. I want to bring you back into the conversation. I'm going to hit you with a double question, so get ready. First of all, to give you the opportunity just to go back and reflect on the origin story of BioTryp and where your passion is on that side of things. But then my second question, we love a double question, is you've got the experience of going through this now for a year. I think it's fair to say, it could be a generalization, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of deep tech or life science founders can get very in the weeds of their technology and sometimes not raise their head above and think about how they promote themselves and how they market themselves. So maybe once you've given us your origin story, you could share why is it important as a founder to enter competitions like this? What benefit does it have?
Thank you, James. That's great. Double questions. Right. So I'm going to start with the passion. I personally believe that it's quite hard for a founder to actually succeed if there wasn't passion right from the beginning in what they are developing. I think in my case, the passion is quite obvious. I think Lorna was talking about the case where you have a clinician who spotted the need, and this is exactly my case. So I was originally trained as a pharmacist, and I worked in hospitals. Now, I've done that before I came back into research. And during my clinical career, I remember seeing patients coming to hospitals with bacterial infections, getting treated with antibiotics, hoping to get better, but more frequently than we would like to admit, the treatment doesn't work. And at that time, I got so frustrated with that I thought sometimes maybe you just have to go back to the drawing board. And that was one of the reasons I came back to research. So I came to Cambridge, did my PhD in microbiology, then started kind of a couple of postdocs. And during my research, in the back of my head, it was that idea that can we actually develop a therapy that will make difference on the clinical side? So it wasn't simply just let's do research to get a nice paper, which is great, but can we make it different? Can we make it better for those patients that I've seen in hospitals? So that's the passion, and it continues obviously with BioTryp, because we are taking forward the science that we have developed in Cambridge. Now, for your second question, is it important for the founder to get out from the lab and actually go and kind of develop their other skills? I think it's extremely important, because talking to scientists is completely different from talking to investors or stakeholders. The questions that scientists would want to ask you, or the answers they would want to hear from you, are really different from what an investor would want to hear. And it's also different from what a potential partner would want to hear. So I think that realization, which came to me obviously over the past 1 year, and I had a bit of that knowledge from my clinical career, I kind of developed it much further over the past year. I think it's essential for every founder coming out from academia to do the same, to take that kind of, let's call it a break, or just kind of leave the lab for a while, go outside, talk to non-experts, develop the way you explain and you describe your technology, and then improve. Maybe I'm going to use one of those, again, biology terminology. It has to evolve. And I think in order for it to evolve, you will have to accumulate skills that are not only restricted to the science, but also to communicating that science.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, and something we talked about before we started the conversation with you guys. And I know that you've all, like Lorna, you've said it, you've talked about the Impulse program, Izu, you've talked about Milner. You know, actually, it's quite a time commitment, because you're trying to do the day job and then you want to do all of these other programs as well, but they're so vitally important. So thank you for sharing your experience, Ash. So I think we're going to close now with what your asks are. So Ash, you've already said yours. Is there anything else you want to add, or do you just want to say it again?
A couple of things, actually. I mean, the one I mentioned earlier is we are currently raising a 2 million seed round. So that's the main ask. We hope that we will close it within the next 3 to 6 months. So there is a bit of time, not much time. But the second ask, we are a small team, and we are planning to expand the team once we close the seed round. We are looking for both people with technical expertise, but also people who could help us on the commercial side. So if there are people around Cambridge or outside Cambridge who think they would like to work with a company like BioTryp, please get in touch with us.
That's great. Thanks, Ash. And Zufu, yourself?
Yeah, we are looking for 1.5 million pre-seed stage, and yes, it's quite a big money, because we are a hardware startup and we need some facilities for testing equipments, and we need to hire some people for manufacturing. Last year we have made some investments, and if our target is 100 OK, we have already got that money, but we are doing a big business, so we aim to raise 1.5 in this stage.
Thank you. Izu, what's going to be happening? What would you like to ask for Healthspan Biotics?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're planning for our clinical research. So for sure, we'll need funding as well as expertise to do that. We already have a great group. If anyone has any expertise of that will be extremely welcome. And also, I think a key aspect is now we're starting to think more on the business aspect, which I think is also incredibly important. We have a tiny bit of funding, so if you're interested in joining us, either as an investor or if you want to be part of us, then that will also be really amazing.
That's great. Thank you. And lastly, Lorna.
Yeah, I think there's almost three things. First is if anyone has warm intros to ideally gynecological radiologists, particularly in the UK, but really anywhere in the world at this point, I would love any warm intro. I feel the more people in that space we can get on board early and be building the technology with them, the better. The second piece, I know we're slightly unusual in that a fair number of the research grants sort of aren't possible for us to apply to because we're not a university spin out as such. So if anyone is aware of sort of grants very much on the for-profit side that perhaps are slightly less typical than the Innovate UK and the European ones, would love to hear about them, because I don't think we're quite there to go off and raise a pre-seed round of investment yet. I think there's a fair amount of technology that still needs building, and that obviously requires some money. And then the last ask is pretty much, if you just happen to be listening to this podcast and have a weird, wonderful way of believing you can help us along, I'd also just love to hear from you. I think the beauty of Cambridge is you don't know necessarily what the network can bring. For example, Jamie Urquhart, brilliant mentor of mine, wouldn't naturally be a mentor for an AI medical imaging startup, but has brought so much knowledge about how ARM was built and how they got customers to demand them. And we're looking to eventually sort of follow that model. And I would never have put those two pieces together, but Jamie did, and it's been really helpful. So actually, just if you've got a genius thing like that this conversation has sparked, I'd just love to hear from you. Yeah, would be a real pleasure.
Well, amazing. It's been great to chat to you all. Congratulations to all of you again. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to help in any way we can.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.
Your pace, our protection. At Howden, we understand tech startups and scale-ups need insurance that moves with them. From launch to exit, we cover it all, adapting to your growth. No limits, no boundaries, just people-first insurance built for innovators like you. Howden, with you every step of the way.